The storm screamed around me as I watched my husband's taillights vanish into the gray curtain of rain. He had just shoved me out of the car to rush his pregnant mistress to the hospital. He thought he was racing toward his new life. He had no clue that within 30 minutes, he would be crawling back to me on his knees. I did not just stand there. I dismantled his entire world. My name is Lauren Hayes. I am 34 years old, and I am currently sitting in the passenger seat of a luxury SUV that is registered in my name while a storm tries to tear the world apart. Outside the window, the wind howls like a dying animal. We are on the outskirts of Fairview City. The rain slashes against the glass so hard it sounds like gravel. The radio is screaming a tornado warning for the county, but my husband does not care about the weather. Ethan Cole only cares about the phone mounted on the dashboard. The screen lights up, cutting through the gloom of the cabin. It is a text message. I see the sender is Camilla Diaz. I know that name. I have seen it on credit card statements and hidden insurance documents for months. The message is short and brutal. It reads simply that her water broke and she is on the table and he needs to hurry. Ethan makes a noise in his throat that sounds like a sob mixed with panic. He slams his foot onto the accelerator. The engine roars. The SUV lurches forward, hydroplaning slightly on the slick asphalt before the tires find traction. He is driving like a madman. I look at him. His knuckles are white on the leather steering wheel. I keep my voice calm, even though my heart is hammering against my ribs. Ethan, I say, are you sure? Are you sure you want me to go with you? He does not even look at me. He keeps his eyes glued to the rain-soaked road. Don't make a scene. He snaps, his voice cold and sharp. She is having my child. Just shut up and let me drive. I am your wife, I say, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. We are legally married. You are dragging me to the birth of your illegitimate child in a hurricane. Stop it, Ethan screams. He takes one hand off the wheel and slams it against the dashboard. Tonight is about my real family. It is not about you. It is never about you. The cruelty of the statement hangs in the air. We are approaching a stretch of highway that is dark and desolate. The streetlights are out because of the storm. The rain is coming down in sheets now, turning the world into a blur of gray and black. Suddenly, Ethan swerves. He does not check the mirror. He just jerks the wheel to the right. The tires screech as we skid onto the gravel shoulder. He stomps on the brakes and the car shudders to a halt. He hits the hazard lights. The rhythmic clicking fills the silence. He turns to me. His eyes are wild. Get out, he commands. I stare at him. I think he is joking. I think this is just another way to hurt me verbally. What I ask? Get out of the car. Lauren, he yells. I don't have time for your drama right now, before I can react. He leans across the center console. I smell his cologne mixed with the stale scent of fear. He hits the unlock button. His fingers fumble with my seatbelt release. Click. The belt retracts. He reaches past me and shoves the passenger door open. The wind immediately rips it from his hand, swinging it wide. Rain floods into the cabin, soaking the leather, soaking me. Ethan, it is storming, I say, my voice trembling. He puts his hand on my shoulder and shoves. It is not a gentle nudge. It is a physical push. I can't let her see you, he says, his voice breaking with desperation. I can't let the mother of the baby see you sitting next to me. Get out. I stumble out. My heels sink into the mud on the side of the road. The rain hits me like a physical blow, soaking my clothes instantly. I turn back, mouth open to scream, but he is already reaching across to slam the door shut. The heavy thud resonates in my chest. The engine revs. The SUV peels away from the curb, tires spinning in the slush. A wave of dirty water and mud splashes up, covering my legs and my coat. I watch the red taillights shrink in the distance. They get smaller and smaller until the curtain of rain swallows them completely. I am alone. I stand there on the side of the highway. I am shaking. I am shaking from the freezing rain, but mostly I am shaking from rage. The humiliation burns hotter than the cold. He left me. He actually left me here to die in a storm so he could play the hero for his mistress. But then, the shaking stops. My mind clears. It is as if the rain washed away the last shred of hesitation I had. Okay, I say to the empty road. Okay. I reach into my drenched coat pocket and pull out my phone. I wipe the screen on the dry side of my sleeve. My fingers are trembling, but my aim is precise. I unlock the screen. I bypass the call log. I go straight to the file manager. I scroll down to a folder I created 6 months ago. It is labeled Plan B. Ethan. I look at the folder. Inside it lies every receipt, every bank transfer, and every lie he has told for the last 2 years. You think you kicked me out of the car? I whisper, my voice lost in the wind. You have no idea. You didn't kick me out. You just jumped out of your own life. 6 years ago. The storm was not outside my window. It was inside a sterile conference room at Sentinel Assurance. I was 28 years old, a junior fraud investigator hungry to prove that I could spot a lie from a mile away. Ethan was the guest instructor for our mandatory first aid certification. He was a paramedic back then. He wore a uniform that fit him too well, and he had the kind of hands that looked like they could fix anything. I did not grow up with men like Ethan. I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio where the men were temporary and the debts were permanent. I learned to balance a checkbook before I learned to ride a bike because mistakes in my house meant we did not eat. I clawed my way out of poverty with scholarships and 2 jobs. I built a life that was safe. I built walls that were high. But Ethan smiled at me while demonstrating chest compressions on a dummy, and I felt those walls crack. He courted me with stories of saving lives. He did not talk about money or status. He talked about the golden hour and the miracle of a restarted heart. For a woman who spent her days hunting down people who faked injuries for a payout, his raw honesty was intoxicating. I thought I had finally found something real. We got married in a small chapel in Fairview. It was simple. It was perfect. We bought a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. It was a fixer-upper, but it was ours. We secured it with an FHA loan because I had the credit score of a saint and the down payment savings to match. Ethan had the charm, but I had the discipline. I thought that made us a good team. Then the shift happened. Ethan decided he was too old to lift stretchers. He leveraged his field experience into a corporate job at the Everlake Medical Network. He moved into the public relations department. He traded his uniform for suits I bought him on sale. He started talking about brand synergy and donor relations instead of heart rates. That was when the name first appeared. Camilla Diaz. Camilla from OB says the new birthing suites are going to be great for the press release. He told me over dinner one night. It was innocent at first, just a name dropped between bites of lasagna. But then it became frequent. Camilla was funny. Camilla was smart. Camilla was having a hard time. I felt a familiar itch in the back of my brain. The same instinct that told me a claimant was lying about his back pain, but I shoved it down. I told myself I was a wife, not an investigator. I refused to treat my marriage like a case file. The red flags started to pile up like unread mail. Ethan started coming home late. He blamed it on networking events. When he leaned in to kiss me, he smelled of hospital antiseptic masked by a floral perfume that I did not own. His phone became a permanent extension of his hand. He would text late into the night and smile at the screen. Just work stuff. He would say when I asked, "The hospital social media never sleeps." I wanted a family. I wanted to fill the empty rooms in our house. One night, I sat him down on the sofa. "Ethan," I said, touching his knee. "We have the space. The loan is under control, I think. I think we should stop preventing it. I want a baby." He pulled away. He stood up and walked to the window. "Not yet. Lauren," he said, his back to me. "I need to be more stable at work. You know how the medical industry is. It is volatile." 10 minutes later, he was talking about her again. "Camilla is so brave," he said, his voice full of an admiration he had stopped showing me years ago. "She is deciding to be a single mother. She is going to do it all on her own. That takes real courage." I sat there and let him praise another woman for having the child he refused to give me. I ended that night sitting alone at the kitchen table. The house was quiet. I had my laptop open to our monthly budget spreadsheet. I looked at the numbers. Every dollar was accounted for. The mortgage, the utilities, the grocery bill. I prided myself on transparency. I tracked every cent. "At least the money is clean," I whispered to the empty room. "You can't hide anything from me here." I was so arrogant. I thought because I controlled the bank login, I controlled the truth. I did not realize then that a man does not need a separate bank account to bankrupt you. He had already moved his investments. He had invested his heart somewhere else and left me guarding an empty vault. The notification lit up the face of his Apple Watch sitting on the bathroom counter. It was 7 in the evening. The screen read, "Camilla, OB checkup, 20 weeks. That was interesting because Ethan had told me he was at a mandatory marketing strategy meeting that would run until midnight. I did not scream. I did not throw the watch against the wall. Instead, a switch flipped in my brain. The part of me that was a wife turned off, and the part of me that was a fraud investigator turned on. I walked to my laptop and logged into the Sentinel Assurance client portal using my administrative credentials. It was a breach of protocol, but I was not looking for a client. I was looking for a ghost. I typed in her name. Camilla Diaz. The system returned a hit immediately. There was a maternity health contract registered 3 months ago. The primary policyholder was Camilla. The dependent father was listed clearly as Ethan Cole. The secondary contact email was the joint Gmail account that Ethan and I shared for household bills. He was so arrogant that he thought I would never look there. He thought he was smarter than the woman who caught insurance scammers for a living. I opened a fresh Excel spreadsheet and named it Anomalies, EC. Next, I downloaded our joint credit card statements for the last 12 months. I did not just look at the totals. I looked at the metadata. I found transactions at a boutique baby store in the city center. I found recurring charges at an Italian restaurant 2 blocks from Everlake Hospital. I opened his Venmo history. There were dozens of payments to Camilla. The memos were just emojis, a baby bottle, a heart, a smiley face, but the sums were significant. $200 here, $300 there. The pattern was clear, but the funding source was off. The math did not add up with his reported salary. I waited until he was asleep that night. He had left his iPad on the nightstand and forgot to log out of his browser. I checked his history. I found a login page for an online-only bank I had never heard of. He had saved the password. I clicked it. It was a checking account opened 18 months ago. I scanned the deposits. His full salary from Everlake was being deposited here first. Then, he set up an automatic transfer to move a smaller fixed amount into our joint account, the amount he claimed was his full paycheck. He was keeping 40% of his income in this secret account and funneling it almost entirely to Camilla Diaz. He was not just cheating on me. He was embezzling from our marriage. Over the next week, I watched him play the role of the saint. He told his colleagues and anyone who would listen about how he was helping a struggling single mother navigate the healthcare system. He loved the praise. I decided to capture that performance. I bought a high-fidelity voice recorder and magnetic mount, placing it under the driver's seat of the SUV. I needed his own voice to hang him. I took the file, now thick with printed spreadsheets and transcripts, to Janet Monroe. Janet and I went to university together. She ran a small law firm that specialized in high-conflict divorces. I placed the folder labeled Plan B, Ethan, on her mahogany desk. Janet opened it. She read the first page. Then she flipped through the bank logs. She listened to 30 seconds of the audio recording where Ethan told Camilla he loved her belly. Janet took off her glasses and looked at me. "Lauren," she said, her voice serious. If this was an insurance fraud case, you just built a perfect indictment. This is clinical. He is sloppy. I said, he thinks he is untouchable. We spent the next 2 hours building a firewall. We set up a new bank account in my name only. We drafted letters to the credit bureaus to freeze my reports so he could not open new lines of credit using my information. We prepared the paperwork to change the beneficiary on my life insurance policy from Ethan Cole to my sister. We moved my savings, cent by cent, into the new secure account. Janet leaned back in her chair as we finished. The rain was starting to drizzle outside, a preview of the storm that was coming. I have to ask you something, Janet said. What is the end game here? Do you want alimony? Do you want the house? Do you want him to beg? I looked at the folder. I thought about the way he lied to my face without blinking. I thought about the way he used my credit to build a nest for another woman. I don't want his money, I said. I don't even want him back. I want to make sure he never has the chance to ruin another life with his speeches again. I want to take away his audience. The morning the storm hit, my phone buzzed with a severe weather alert. It warned of gale force winds and potential flash floods. The forecast felt fitting because it was also the first day of Camila's 39th week of pregnancy. I stared at the screen and felt a strange pressure in my own chest, as if I were the one about to give birth to something violent. I found Ethan in the garage. He was shoving a duffel bag into the hidden compartment of the trunk. When he went back inside to grab his keys, I opened the bag. It was not a gym kit. It was a hospital bag. On top of the diapers lay a soft yellow onesie with the name Cole embroidered in blue thread. Next to it was a card that read, "Daddy's first night." My hands went cold. Ethan reappeared in the doorway, his face draining of color when he saw what I was holding. He rushed forward and snatched the bag from my grip. That is for a friend," he stammered, his eyes darting away from mine. "A guy at work. His wife is due. I'm just holding it for him. It says Cole on the chest." "Ethan," I said. "It's a common name," he shouted, zipping the bag shut with aggressive force. "Stop snooping. Why do you always have to ruin everything?" The phone calls started an hour later. Ethan's mother called, her voice high and breathless, hinting about big news coming soon and asking if we were prepared. She knew. She absolutely knew. Then my mother called. She heard the flatness in my voice immediately. "You sound like you are holding your breath." "Lauren," she said, "is everything okay?" "I am fine. Mom." I lied. "I am just working on a very complicated fraud case. The suspect thinks he has gotten away with it, but the evidence is about to drop." Before we left the house, I went into the bathroom and locked the door. I opened the banking app on my phone. My fingers flew across the screen. I set a hard emergency spending limit on our joint credit card. I transferred the remaining $5,000 of our rainy day fund into my new, private account. I set up a text alert to notify me immediately if anyone attempted a transaction over $1 on Ethan's personal card. Then I went to the home office. I scanned the deed to the house and the title to the SUV. I attached the PDF files to an email addressed to Janet. The subject line was simple. It read, "Just in case tonight goes how I think it will." I walked into the living room. Ethan was pacing. He looked at me, wringing his hands. "I think you should come with me to the hospital," he said. I looked at him, surprised by his audacity. "Why? Because it looks better," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Camila is nervous. She knows about you. She doesn't want any drama. If you are there, it shows we are all adults. It shows civility. Civility," I repeated. "Okay, I will come." I did not go for civility. I went because I needed to see the moment the line was crossed. I needed to see the exact second my marriage ceased to exist. We got into the car. The rain was just starting to spot the windshield. Ethan turned on the radio to drown out the silence between us. A news bulletin cut through the music. The reporter announced that state regulators were launching a probe into billing irregularities at the Everlake Medical Network. I watched Ethan's jaw tighten. He did not know that I knew exactly where those irregularities were buried. A small, cold smile touched my lips. Then his phone rang. He put it on the speaker. Ethan Camilla's voice filled the cabin, shrill and panicked. "It hurts. The contractions are... They are right on top of each other. You promised you would be here. Don't leave me alone. I'm coming." "Baby, I'm coming," Ethan said, forgetting I was sitting right there. "Just breathe. I am driving as fast as I can." I looked down at my left hand. I twisted my wedding band. It felt loose. It felt like it belonged to a stranger. The rain began to hammer the roof of the car. The world outside turned gray and hostile. I looked at my husband's profile as he swerved through traffic, his face a mask of determination for another woman. As he began to veer toward the shoulder of the dark highway, I realized exactly what was about to happen. I stared at the rain thickening against the glass and thought clearly for the first time that day. If you push me out of this car tonight, Ethan, I thought, I will pull the ground out from under you, and you will never see the fall coming. I stumbled away from the highway, my heels sinking into the mud until I reached the cracked pavement of an old gas station. It was abandoned, but the overhang offered enough shelter to keep the phone dry. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the adrenaline dumping into my bloodstream. I wiped the screen against my chest. The battery indicator showed 30%. 30%! I whispered to the rain. That is enough to ruin a life. I did not cry. I did not call my mother. I opened my banking app. My thumb hovered over the joint credit card, the platinum one with the high limit that Ethan was currently trying to use at the hospital admission desk. I tapped lock card, then. I went a step further. I opened the security settings and flagged the account for suspicious activity, specifically noting that any large transactions in the Fairview area should be considered fraudulent. I composed a secure message to the bank's fraud department. I suspect unauthorized use of my credit line by a family member. I typed, "Please freeze all secondary cards immediately." Next, I opened the Department of Transportation app. I typed in the license plate number of the SUV. I attached a photo of the car I had taken a week ago in our driveway. I selected the option for report illegal parking, obstruction of emergency lane. I knew exactly where he would park at the emergency entrance. He always felt entitled to the closest spot. I hit send. The screen flashed a confirmation information forwarded to local police. The wind howled around the pumps, but I was focused. I dialed the compliance hotline for the Everlake Medical Network. I had memorized the number weeks ago. "This is an anonymous tip," I said when the automated recording started, my voice trembling slightly from the cold, but my diction precise. "I have evidence that a senior employee in the communications department is misappropriating hospital assets and is engaged in an undisclosed relationship with a subordinate in the obstetrics unit, creating a conflict of interest regarding insurance billing." I hung up. The seeds were planted. Now, I just had to watch them grow. I imagined the scene 3 miles away. I stared at my phone as the first notification popped up. "Transaction declined. Everlake admissions, $500. I smiled. A second later, the phone buzzed again. Transaction declined. He was panic swiping. He was standing at the counter, with Camilla breathing through contractions on a gurney, and the card was dead. He would be blaming the system. He would be shouting at the clerk. And while he was making a scene, the hospital security would be getting the ping about a black SUV blocking the ambulance bay. My phone screen lit up. "Incoming call, Ethan." I let it ring. It rang again. And again. 12 missed calls in 5 minutes. He was spiraling. He had no money, no insurance card for her, and no way to fix it without me. Then, a different number called. It was a local area code. I answered. "Is this Mrs. Cole?" a gruff voice asked. This is Mike from Fairview Towing. I have a dispatch order for a black SUV blocking the ER lane. The police ran the plate and it came back to you. I'm about to hook it up. Just wanted to confirm. Yes, I said, my voice calm. I am the owner. I am not with the vehicle right now. You can take it. Copy that. Mike said. The guy running out here is screaming his head off, though he is just very emotional. I said, you keep the car locked for me. The driver has no authority to stop you. I hung up. 30 minutes passed. The rain intensified, turning the world into a wash of gray. I stood under the flickering fluorescent light of the gas station canopy, waiting. I knew he would come. He had no car. He had no money. His phone battery was likely worse than mine. He had nowhere else to go. Then I saw him. He was running along the shoulder of the road, splashing through puddles, his expensive suit jacket soaked through and ruined. He looked small. He looked pathetic. He spotted me standing under the dry light of the station and scrambled up the embankment. He hit the wet concrete and slipped. His leather dress shoes found no traction on the oily surface. He went down hard, his knees slamming into the ground. He slid a few feet, stopping right in front of me. He was gasping for air, water dripping from his hair into his eyes. He looked up at me. He was shivering violently. Lauren. He choked out, wiping rain from his face. Please, I need you to unlock the card. The hospital won't. They won't admit her fully without the deposit. The car. They took the car. He tried to stand, but his legs were shaking too much. He stayed on his knees. It was a perfect picture of defeat. My son! He wheezed, panic making his voice crack. She is in labor. Lauren. You have to help me. I am begging you. I looked down at him. I felt absolutely nothing. The love I had held for 6 years was gone, washed away by the storm. I reached into my tote bag, which I had managed to keep dry. I pulled out my tablet. I had prepared the document 2 days ago, just in case. I woke the screen and held it out to him. The glow of the tablet illuminated his terrified face. Get up, I said, my voice ice cold. Sign this first. He squinted at the screen, confused. What? What is this? It is a power of attorney transferring the title of the SUV and 60% of the house equity to my name, solely, I said. You sign it, and I might think about unlocking the card. Are you crazy? He shouted, but it came out as a whimper. Right now, you are doing this. Right now, you have about 2 minutes before my battery dies, I said, not moving an inch, and even less time before Camilla realizes you are broke. Sign it, Ethan. The internet moves faster than the legal system. By the time I managed to get a cab back to our empty house, the dashcam footage from a passing truck was already viral. The video was grainy, shot through a rain-slicked windshield, but the action was unmistakable. It showed a black SUV swerving to the shoulder, the passenger door flying open, and a man forcibly shoving a woman out into the deluge before speeding away. The TikTok caption was simple and devastating. He left his wife in a storm to get to his baby mama. My phone, which I had just charged to 10%, began to buzz incessantly. It was not Ethan. It was everyone else. I received screenshots, links, and text messages from colleagues, neighbors, and people I had not spoken to since high school. They all asked the same variation of the question. Is that you? Lauren, a text from a junior analyst at my office, read. I did not reply to the masses. I only responded to Sarah, my oldest friend, who had sent the link with a row of skull emojis. Yeah, it is me. I typed, my fingers cold but steady. Do not share it. I am using it. While the internet was busy dissecting my marriage, Camilla gave birth. I learned this through a notification on our shared insurance portal, which Ethan had been too panicked to lock me out of. It was a girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. I sat in the quiet of my living room and felt a strange wave of relief. I did not hate the baby. I have never hated the innocent. My rage was a precision instrument reserved strictly for the two adults who thought they could build a family on the wreckage of mine. Then the landline rang. It was Diane, Ethan's mother. She did not ask if I was okay. She did not ask if I was cold. How could you? She shrieked the moment I picked up. How could you let people say these things about Ethan? You are making a mockery of this family. You need to go online and tell them it was a misunderstanding. I didn't post the video. Diane, I said, my voice flat. And I didn't push myself out of a moving car. He was stressed, she yelled. He is a father now. You are just bitter because you couldn't give him that. I hung up. I did not slam the phone. I just placed it gently back on the receiver. A few minutes later, a text arrived from Brooke, Ethan's sister. She was the one with the perfect hair and the high-powered PR job. The text was long and rambling. I saw the video. She wrote, I feel sick. I knew he was seeing someone. I didn't know it was this bad. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I was scared of blowing up the family. I read the message twice. I did not reply. I took a screenshot and saved it to the Plan B folder. Her silence had been a choice, and now her apology was just evidence of complicity. By noon, the hashtag Everlake Cover-Up was trending locally. Internet sleuths had connected the dots. They found Ethan's LinkedIn profile, which proudly listed him as the Director of Communications at Everlake Medical. They found Camilla's registry, which was public. They realized the PR director of a hospital under investigation for billing fraud was dating a nurse in the very department being investigated. Ethan tried to get ahead of it. I heard from a mutual friend that he was walking around the hospital corridors, telling anyone who would listen that I was the problem. She is mentally unstable. He apparently told his team. She jumped out of the car. She is having a psychotic break. I am just trying to protect my newborn. He did not know I had the recording of him kneeling in the rain. He did not know I had the power of attorney he had signed while begging for his credit card to work. I called Janet. He is calling me crazy. I said, should I post the waiver? No. Janet said, her voice sharp and professional. We do not fight in the comments section. We fight in the boardroom. Send the video of him kneeling, the bank statements, and the signed waiver directly to the Everlake Human Resources Director and his lawyer. Let them see exactly how unstable you were when you negotiated a property transfer in a hurricane. I spent the evening alone on the sofa. The house was quiet, but it felt different. It felt like mine. I turned on the local news. The anchor was talking about the viral storm video. Sources tell us the woman left on the roadside is actually a fraud investigator here in the city, the reporter said, looking grave. And legal experts say the husband could be facing more than just a public backlash. I took a sip of water and smiled at the screen. You have no idea, I whispered to the televised image of my husband's blurred face. This time, the case study is my own life. The conference room at Everlake Human Resources was freezing, but Ethan was sweating. He sat across from the table, flanked by a union representative who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. On the wall-mounted screen, the dash-cam footage played on a loop without sound. It showed the passenger door flying open. It showed Ethan shoving me. It showed the rain swallowing me whole. I sat at the end of the table, silent, invited only as an affected party to the investigation. The HR director, a woman named Mrs. Vance who did not suffer fools, paused the video. Mr. Cole, she said, her voice devoid of sympathy. We are not here to discuss your marital conduct. We are here to discuss the fact that the address listed on Ms. Diaz's insurance profile matches the deed to the house owned by your wife. We are also here to discuss the guarantor form for the delivery costs. It lists Lauren Hayes as the responsible party. But the signature does not match the one we have on file for Mrs. Hayes. Ethan shifted in his chair. He tugged at his collar. It was a clerical error. He stammered. I meant to put my name. I was used to filling out forms with Lauren. I did not let him finish. I slid a manila folder across the polished table. It was not an error, I said, keeping my voice steady. Here is a forensic comparison of my signature versus the one on the admission forms. It is a forgery. And here is the IP log showing that my personal Sentinel account was accessed from Ethan's work laptop 2 weeks ago to download my financial data. This is not just adultery. It is identity misuse. The room went deadly quiet. Mrs. Vance looked at the papers, then at Ethan. Mr. Cole, you are placed on administrative leave with pay pending a full compliance review, she said. We are also obligated to report this to the state licensing board. If you are found to have committed insurance fraud, your dormant paramedic license could be revoked permanently. Ethan looked like he had been punched in the gut. He opened his mouth to argue, but the union rep put a hand on his arm and shook his head. 2 days later, the battlefield shifted to Janet's office. The air smelled of expensive coffee and old books. Ethan's divorce lawyer was a loud man in a cheap suit who seemed to think volume was a legal strategy. My client has significant financial burdens, the lawyer announced, tossing a stack of papers onto Janet's desk. He now has a dependent child. He has to support 2 families. Since Mrs. Hayes is the primary earner, we are requesting she buy out his share of the house and contribute temporary spousal support until he gets back on his feet. Ethan nodded, looking righteous. I have to provide for my daughter. Lauren, you can't just leave us with nothing. Janet did not even blink. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was the document Ethan had signed in the rain. Actually, Janet said, smiling tightly, he doesn't have a share of the house anymore, or the car. She slid the document over. It was the power of attorney and asset transfer agreement. It was notarized digitally 5 minutes after he signed it. Ethan stared at the paper. His face went pale. I don't remember this part, he whispered. I thought I was just signing for the car. You transferred the title of the SUV and 60% of the marital home equity to Lauren Hayes, Janet explained, in exchange for immediate access to the credit line to pay for the hospital admission deposit. You made a trade. Ethan, this was signed under duress, his lawyer shouted, finally finding an angle. He was in a storm. His mistress was in labor. He was not in a sound state of mind. We anticipated that argument, Janet said. She turned her laptop around. It showed the security footage from the gas station forecourt. The audio was crisp. On the screen, my voice was clear as I held the tablet out to him. Are you sure you can wait for your lawyer? And Ethan's voice, desperate and impatient, cut through the rain. Just give it to me. I will sign anything. Just give me the card. He was given an opportunity to wait, Janet said, closing the laptop. He declined. That is full consent. I decided to drive the final nail into the coffin. I pulled out the last spreadsheet. Also, I said, addressing the mediator directly, regarding the debt division. Ethan established a secret fund using transfers from our joint savings. He used it to put a down payment on a sedan for Ms. Diaz. Since he used marital assets to buy a gift for a third party, I am requesting that the remaining debt on that vehicle be assigned solely to him. The mediator looked at the numbers. He looked at Ethan. Agreed. The mediator said. The meeting ended in a blur of shuffling papers. Ethan sat alone in the waiting room while his lawyer went to call a cab. He looked stripped down. He had no job, no car, no house, and a mountain of debt. He looked up as Janet and I walked out. Janet, he said, his voice cracking. If I apologize to her, does it change anything? Janet stopped. She looked at him with the clinical detachment of a surgeon. For her, it might help her heal, Janet said. But for you, no. The numbers on the paper do not change just because you are sorry. The ethics hearing was held in the executive boardroom of the Everlake Medical Network. The room smelled of floor wax and impending litigation. Around the long oval table sat the hospital's general counsel, a representative from the insurance carrier, the head of the union, and 3 senior members of the ethics committee. Ethan sat at the far end. He looked like a man who was trying to shrink inside his own suit. I sat on the sidelines. I was not an employee, but I was the affected party. I remained silent as they played the video of the storm. There was no sound, but the violence of the shove was clear. I watched the faces of the committee members. They flinched when my figure on the screen disappeared into the rain. Ethan stood up to speak first. He had clearly rehearsed this. He adopted a posture of humility, shoulders slumped, voice wavering. My marriage has been dead for a long time, Ethan said, looking pleadingly at the board members. We were roommates who hated each other. I found comfort in Camilla. I know it looks bad, but I was just trying to protect my child. Lauren is vindictive. She is trying to destroy my livelihood because she is jealous that another woman could give me the one thing she refused to give me. He sat down, wiping a fake tear from his eye. The union rep nodded sympathetically. Then, the chairman called my name. I stood up. I did not cry. I did not shout. I walked to the projector and plugged in my laptop. I am not here to discuss the state of my marriage, I said, my voice level. I am here to discuss the misappropriation of hospital funds and identity theft. I clicked the remote. A timeline appeared on the screen behind me. On the 12th of May, Ethan Cole accessed the Sentinel Assurance portal using my credentials. I explained, pointing to the log. He did not do this to check my coverage. He did it to forge a guarantor document. He listed me as the financial sponsor for Ms. Diaz's delivery costs without my knowledge or consent. I clicked to the next slide. It showed a screenshot of a text message Ethan had sent to Camilla 3 months ago. The text read, "Don't worry about the deductible. I put it on the joint account. Lauren never checks the statements. The baby will be covered. He made me the financier of his infidelity," I said. And when I questioned him in the car, he did not just ask me to leave. He endangered my life to silence me. The room was deadly quiet. The insurance representative was furiously taking notes. Then, the door opened. Camilla Diaz walked in. She was still wearing a hospital wristband. She looked exhausted. She had been summoned to testify regarding her knowledge of the fraud. She looked at Ethan, then at me. Suddenly, she burst into tears. He told me, you knew." Camilla sobbed, her voice echoing in the sterile room. "He said you had an open marriage. He told me that you were cold and didn't want children. He said you agreed to let him find happiness elsewhere as long as he didn't embarrass you." Ethan's face went gray. He stood up halfway. "Camilla, don't. Sit down, Mr. Cole," the general counsel barked. I looked at Camilla. I expected to feel hate, but I only felt a dull pity. He had played us both. He had used her body and my wallet to build a fantasy where he was the king. "I have always wanted children, Camilla," I said softly, but I did not want a child to be brought into the world as evidence of a crime. The chairman of the committee looked at me. "Mrs. Hayes, given the severity of the document forgery, do you intend to press criminal charges?" I looked at Ethan. He was shaking his head slightly, a silent plea for mercy. "I want 2 things," I said. "I want to ensure that this medical system is not used to subsidize lies. And I want to make sure no other patient is left abandoned because a staff member is living a double life." The deliberation took less than 20 minutes. The decision was read aloud. Ethan Cole was terminated effective immediately with cause. He was placed on the ineligible for rehire list, which effectively blacklisted him from every major hospital network in the state. The file regarding the insurance forgery was being forwarded to the State Insurance Commission for further investigation. Camilla was given a formal written warning but retained her job on the condition of full cooperation with the audit. The price of his arrogance was not just a divorce, it was his entire identity. I walked out of the boardroom. The hallway was long and bright. I heard footsteps running behind me. Ethan grabbed my arm. I spun around, pulling my arm away. "You happy now?" he hissed, his face twisted with malice. "You just killed my career. I have nothing. You destroyed everything." I looked him in the eye. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. "I didn't destroy anything. Ethan," I said, "you did that the night you kicked your wife out of a car in a hurricane. I just turned on the lights so everyone could finally see you." The divorce decree arrived 4 months after the storm. It was a thick stack of paper that effectively dissolved the last 6 years of my life. I kept the house, which I immediately put on the market. I kept 90% of my retirement savings. Ethan, on the other hand, walked away with the credit card debt, the unpaid balance for the private birthing suite he had booked without money, and a court-mandated child support payment that would garnish his wages for the next 18 years. I did not stay in the suburbs. The silence there was too loud. I sold the house to a nice young couple who looked at the kitchen island with the same naive hope I once had. I took the equity and moved into a loft in the Harbor View district. It was small, but it had floor-to-ceiling windows that let in so much light it felt like living inside a diamond. My career shifted gears, too. A fintech company called Aurora Ledger headhunted me. They wanted someone who could smell a scam before the code even executed. I became their head of fraud prevention. The pay was better, but the satisfaction of stopping bad actors before they could hurt anyone was the real bonus. My mornings changed. I started running along the riverfront at 6 in the morning. I drank my latte at a coffee shop where the barista knew my name, not my husband's order. The best part was the silence of my phone. I no longer had to send the obligatory text asking, "What is the plan for dinner?" or worry about coordinating my life around a man who was living a lie. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Evans. We spent a lot of time talking about the trailer park in Ohio. You felt like you deserved to be left on the side of the road. Dr. Evans told me one session, because deep down, you still think poverty makes you disposable. I thought if I made enough money, I would be safe, I said, struggling to get the words out. Money buys safety. Lauren, she replied, it does not buy loyalty. I tried dating. It was a disaster, but a necessary one. I went on a few coffee dates arranged through an app. There was a math teacher who was kind but had zero spark. Then there was a finance guy who ordered for me and bragged about his bonus. He reminded me of a carbon copy of Ethan. I think we are done here, I told him before the appetizers even arrived. I deleted the app in the taxi ride home. Then, out of the blue, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I had blocked but later unblocked for legal reasons. It was Camilla. "Can we meet?" the text read. "Just 10 minutes. There is a diner near the old hospital." My instinct was to say no, but curiosity is a professional hazard. I met her on a Tuesday afternoon. She looked tired. Motherhood and scandal had aged her. She did not order coffee. She just slid a manila envelope across the sticky table. "What is this?" I asked. "It is everything," Camilla said, her voice quiet. "It is the emails he sent me from his work account. It is the chat logs where he bragged about using your signature to dodge the insurance premiums. He told me he was protecting us." I opened the envelope. It was a treasure trove of evidence. It proved he had manipulated her just as much as he had manipulated me. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. "You know this could hurt him more." "I was wrong," Camilla said, tears welling in her eyes. "I was wrong to believe him. But I don't want my daughter to grow up thinking her mother was complicit in a crime. I want you to have it. Use it if he tries to fight you on the settlement." We sat there for a moment. Two women who had been pitted against each other by a man who was currently living in a studio apartment and working freelance. We were not friends. We would never be friends. But the animosity was gone. I will never forget that night. "Camilla," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "But I also don't want your daughter to hear a lie when she asks about her father." She nodded, wiped her eyes, and left. I walked back to my loft. The city was alive around me. I felt lighter than I had in years. When I got home, I took a yellow sticky note and a Sharpie. I wrote a single sentence and stuck it to the bathroom mirror, right where I would see it every morning while I brushed my teeth. No one is allowed to push me to the curb in my own life again. I looked at my reflection. For the first time in a long time, I recognized the woman staring back. It has been exactly 1 year since the night the sky opened up and tried to swallow me whole. The notification I received this morning did not come from the National Weather Service. It came from the county family court. Ethan was significantly behind on his child support payments. The court had scheduled a hearing to discuss enforcement measures. Janet called me and suggested I attend. She told me that if I wanted to see what the true end of the story looked like, I needed to be in that room. I sat in the back row of the family court. The fluorescent lights were humming a low, irritating tune. Ethan walked in with a public defender. He looked gaunt. His suit was the same one he used to wear to galas, but now it hung loosely on his frame and there was a stain on the lapel. When he took the stand, he did not look like the confident man who had charmed his way into my life. He looked like a ghost. "I have been unemployed for a long time, Your Honor," Ethan said, his voice trembling as he leaned into the microphone. "I cannot get hired anywhere in the medical field. The viral video, it destroyed my reputation. My ex-wife orchestrated a smear campaign that made me toxic. I am asking for a reduction in payments because I simply cannot pay." I sat there and felt absolutely nothing. I did not feel anger. I did not feel pity. I watched my lawyer stand up and present a simple folder to the judge. "Mr. Cole claims poverty," my lawyer stated, her voice echoing in the small chamber. "However, we have subpoenaed his digital wallet records. Here are his PayPal and Venmo logs from the last 6 months. He is receiving consistent payments for freelance marketing consulting, and here are the corresponding debit charges. He has spent over $4,000 at the Rusty Anchor and various other bars in the downtown district. He has chosen to spend his income on alcohol instead of his daughter." The judge looked at the papers. He looked at Ethan over the rim of his glasses. "Mr. Cole," the judge said, his tone severe, "if you continue to neglect your obligations while funding your social life, I will not hesitate to issue a warrant for your arrest. I will seize your remaining assets and I will ensure the medical board strips you of any remaining credentials you hold. Do I make myself clear?" Ethan turned pale. His entire world seemed to shrink down to the 4 walls of the courtroom. He nodded, unable to speak. The hearing ended 20 minutes later. I walked out of the heavy double doors and into the afternoon light. The sky was gray and overcast. Just as I reached the sidewalk, the courthouse's automatic sprinkler system roared to life. Water sprayed across the pavement, soaking the concrete and creating a mist that hung in the air. It was not a storm, but the smell of wet asphalt instantly transported me back to that night on the highway. I heard footsteps running behind me. "Lauren," I stopped, but did not turn around. Ethan came skidding around to face me. He lost his footing on the wet pavement. For the second time in our lives, he fell to his knees in front of me. This time, it was not on a dangerous highway. It was on the safe, manicured steps of a government building. He reached out and grabbed my ankle, his fingers digging into the fabric of my pants. "I have lost everything," he choked out, water from the sprinklers misting his face like fake tears. "You won. You took the house. You took my job. You took my dignity. Can you please just give me a break? Can you give me a chance?" I looked down at him. A year ago, I would have screamed. I would have cried. I would have asked him why I was not enough. Now, I just saw a stranger who had refused to grow up. I gently pulled my leg away from his grip. "The only chance you have is to become a decent father to the child you created," I said, my voice calm and steady. "The rest of it, I am not involved anymore. That is between you and the consequences of your own actions. I stepped around him. I walked through the spray of the sprinklers. The water dampened my coat. But I did not shiver. I walked to my own car, opened the door, and drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. That evening, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window of my new loft in Harborview. The city lights were twinkling below me. I opened my laptop and typed the final sentence of the article I was writing for a leading industry journal. The title was, "Case Study When Fraud is Not Just Numbers But Human Lives." I looked at the cursor blinking on the screen. I smiled and typed the conclusion. If someone kicks you out of their car, remember that you still have your own legs. Use them to walk to your own vehicle and drive yourself home. I saved the file. I closed the laptop. My revenge story was over because my real life had finally begun. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please comment below and tell me where you are listening from so we can share our thoughts together. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lily Revenge Stories channel, like the video, and hit that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.